Well, about midday yesterday, the world learned that President Biden had COVID. He is reportedly experiencing mild symptoms, according to his doctor. We have a tweet here from President Biden where you can see some more information on that.
Hey folks, guess you heard this morning I tested positive for COVID, but I've been double vaccinated, double boosted. Symptoms are mild, and I really appreciate your inquiries and your concerns. But I'm doing well. I'm getting a lot of work done. I'm going to continue to get it done, and in the meantime, thanks for your concern, and keep the faith. It's going to be okay.
All right, well, White House reporter Real Clear Politics Philip Wegmann joins us now to weigh in. Philip, thank you so much for stopping by Rising Fridays.
No problem.
All right, so this comes on the heels of Joe Biden saying this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated for a couple of years. I think he's used that phrase. How is the White House balancing questions about the president's, to the extent it's getting tough questions, about the president's long history of pushing vaccines, pushing the pandemic of the unvaccinated narrative, while being, what is he, double boosted, and then coming down with COVID himself?
The questions that the White House faced yesterday were all about the first order concern, which is the president's health in the here and now. And so I don't think that the press corps made the follow-up question, which was, does any of this fly in the face of the medical device that you were giving before? Some of it, as you mentioned, which sort of took on a bit of a virtuous tone, this idea that, you weren't a good citizen necessarily if you weren't double boosted and vaxxed. We haven't gotten there yet. Right now, we're still trying to get all of the specifics and particulars down about the president's own condition, because again, he can't escape it. Joe Biden is 79 years old, and we know one thing about this virus, and that is that it is particularly rough for folks who are older. But again, the silver lining here is that I guess the president has been fully vaccinated. He's boosted. He has it. His doctors, though, say that this will most likely be a mild case.
And, during Delta, I think the data was showing something like you were 10 times more likely to get infected if you were unvaccinated rather than vaccinated. And back then, I even called it, pandemic of the unvaccinated at that point. But over the next several, I
get it.
But over the next several months, and particularly with Omicron and its vaccine resistance, or its vaccine, what do you call it, where it sneaks around it, that has certainly changed the equation, and yes. I don't think anybody even is claiming anymore that the vaccine is going to prevent you from getting it. And in fact, the Democratic messaging on this has really changed dramatically, Philip. You had Ron Klain either this morning or last night posting a piece in the Washington Post by Leana Wen, who had been one of the more alarmist kind of COVID folks at the early stages, but has kind of done a 180. And she wrote a piece for the Post saying, this shows that this is the new normal. Everybody's going to get COVID. It's amazing that Biden didn't get it for this long. And Klain has gotten a lot of criticism from liberals and progressives for boosting that post, because there's, it didn't mention long COVID, and it didn't talk about the fact that we shouldn't just make this a new normal in a country that doesn't, provide health care for everybody across the board. So what is it that drove this kind of new White House messaging, where they're now kind of on the end of fury from progressives, and how kind of nonchalantly they talk about it?
Because they don't have any other choice. You've got the president who himself is sick, and they need to continue with a business as usual narrative here. Otherwise, that creates all sorts of other problems. Certainly, we all wish the president the best and a speedy recovery, but it's difficult for you to have your hair on fire and say that we're not doing enough to combat the pandemic, and we need Republicans and conservatives to get on board, and the vaccine is the best thing ever, and then the president contracts COVID, right? I think that you're absolutely right, Ryan, that there is differences when it comes to these variants, whether it's Omicron or Delta. I think that as the average person looks back, though, they're not going to say, oh, well, now the White House says it's more than likely that about 70% of Americans will get COVID, and it's going to be this new variant. No, they're looking back to the most painful moment in their life during this pandemic, wherever that might be. And if it was a moment where they had to face a tough question, which was either adhere to the backdoor vaccine mandate, which was through the employer mandate, or lose their job, they're going to be pretty angry with what they see now as nonchalance from this administration. And that's the needle that I think that the administration is trying to thread here. They're trying to say, yes, COVID is still serious, but we're at such a point because of the vaccines and therapies that are available to us that even if you do get it, your chances of being seriously ill are very low. But that is going to require some explanation. And we all know this far into the pandemic, people aren't ready for explanations. They're ready for hard set emotions, and they're ready to blame someone.
And one more question. There's an interesting balance here in that the country really is ready to move on from the pandemic. The country's been ready to move on from the pandemic since 2 weeks to slow the spread turned out to not be the case. But now that people have their vaccines, there's resistance, and everything is starting to calm down. It's interesting. I wanted to ask Philip, since you've covered Biden for a while, what you made of the video the White House posted of him saying, "Keep the faith, everything is fine." Is that an attempt, really, presumably he had that videographer there who I think the White House said was 6 feet away and was wearing a mask and they were outside. Is that an attempt by the White House to sort of reassure the country that things really can be fine even as the virus continues to spread?
I think that might have been the secondary concern, this idea that, cases are going to go up, but deaths are going to go down and we'll be fine. That video was likely an encapsulation of that. I think the primary goal with that clip was for the president to say, look, we all remember how things were when Trump had it. I'm fine, I've got it, but my most severe symptoms are runny nose and sore throat. And the Biden administration, they've been preparing for this for some time because they always thought that perhaps it was going to be an inevitability that he got COVID. And when it was some of these more aggressive strains, there was legitimate fear, right, about his health. And I think that video was meant to sort of tamp things down. The issue that the White House perhaps could run into if Biden does take a turn for the worse and doesn't recover as quickly as we hope, is they could be accused of a lack of transparency. Because yesterday, you had the White House press secretary who came out and spoke to reporters, as well as Dr. Jha, who is the COVID task force coordinator. You did not have the president's own personal physician. So we were playing this game of telephone where they would report back to us something that the president's physician had reported to them, that the president had reported to the president's physician, right? And one area where that was particularly a problem is the president's physician says that last night Biden came down with these symptoms. On Wednesday night, he came down with these symptoms after coming back from Massachusetts. Jha and Karine told us that the only symptoms that the president had were fatigue, right? And so basically what's going to happen from now until COVID is over or Biden is fully recovered is you are going to have, people taking a very close look at what they're doing versus what they're saying. And then I think there will also be some people who are just politically opportunistic, and they are looking for an opportunity to scold the president for his, perhaps nonchalance as much as Democrats scolded them.
Any parlor room speculation about where he got it? Does it line up with his trip to the Middle East?
Yeah, so Jha was pushed on that. His thought when he was asked about the Middle East was that he seemed to imply that more than likely this was something that came from the last 48 hours, right? This wasn't something that he would have picked up from that fist bump with MBS. But again, we don't know, right? And Karine did not do herself any favors when a reporter asked, where did he get this? And she said, it doesn't matter. Well, wait a minute. We've been living through contact tracing. We've been living through these questions of if you have COVID, who can you pass it on to? So it certainly does matter. And there are both political ramifications and historical ramifications if it was something that he brought back from the Middle East, if this is something that he picked up in one of his meetings with foreign dignitaries. We just had the wife of the president of Ukraine in town, or is this something that he got when he was in New England? And so when I asked Karine, if you find out where he picked this up, won't you tell us, given that it actually does matter, at least for history? Her response was, the most important thing is focusing on the president's health here and now, but it's really hard to do contact tracing and figure out where people got COVID. Okay. So that doesn't exactly inspire confidence in us figuring out where the president picked this up.
We actually have more from the White House. We have a video clip of the White House's response when asked how Biden possibly got infected. Here's what officials had to say.
Where exactly was the president infected?
Where was he infected? I don't think we know. I certainly don't know if you have any thoughts on it.
Look, I don't think that matters, right? I think what matters is we prepared for this moment. I think what matters is what Dr. Jha just laid out. If we look at where we were a year and a half ago, this is a president, when he walked in, one of his first priorities was to make sure we had a comprehensive plan to get people vaccinated. And so now today, look to today, more and more people are getting closer to having a more normal life. Vaccines are available. And as Dr. Jha said, if you have not gotten vaccinated, please do. If you have not, if you're not gotten boosted, please do. These are treatments that are going to keep you safe. And I think that's what matters here, is making sure that we continue to do the work. And the good thing is that the president, again, has been vaccinated and double boosted.
Well, we were told it mattered. The rest of us were told it mattered, and we aren't interfacing with world leaders. So I'm not sure how well that will fly.
Well, a lot of places have dropped contact tracing because of the severity of the community spread. When they started dropping contact spreading in D.C. and other places, like, oh, okay, this is bad. Like, it's like because it's everywhere. Because now it's absolutely everywhere.
Right.
So, but I think for historical purposes, it'd be nice to know. But beyond that, like, it's everywhere.
It would be nice to know that for sure, and also from a White House that promised to return to normal and all that good stuff. Always great to get insights from the briefing room. White House reporter for Real Clear Politics, Philip Wegmann. Thank you, as always, for joining Rising Fridays.
Thank you.
And we will be back with more Rising Fridays right after this.